Welcome to another episode of the Construction Leading Edge podcast. My name is Todd DeWalt, and my job here is to provide the tools and resources that you need to grow your leadership skills, grow your construction business, and grow your income. In this episode, I have an interview with a gentleman named Dan Conery, who's the Vice President of Business Development at Newforma. They're a software company that serves the construction industry. Dan has some great advice in this interview for millennials. He also talks about some common mistakes that he sees contractors making when it comes to innovation. He also talks a little bit about why he's jealous of folks in the construction industry, and then he'll give some straight up sales tactical advice for us. And this is coming from a veteran business development guy who's been selling for a long time. And then be sure to listen until the end for a special offer from Dan and the folks at Newforma. So without further ado, here is Dan Conery from Newforma. Enjoy. Dan, thanks for being on the podcast. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, thank you, and thank you for inviting us. We appreciate it.
Absolutely. Well, let's jump into it, and let's start with, how about you tell us about your background, kind of your story, and what led you to get into software for the construction industry?
Yeah, what led me here to answer that question first was purely accidental. I came out of graduate school in 1993 into a very, very tough economy, and the simple answer is that a company called Primavera was hiring, and I took a job. So completely accidental what got me into it. But what's kept me in this industry is that I love the fact that the professionals that service this industry deliver things that are tangible. I love traveling the country and traveling the world with my family and being able to point at things, at buildings, at infrastructure, highways, bridges, et cetera, and say I had some small part in helping bring that to fruition. So it was really just the fact that this industry works on things that you can see every single day. And it pained me in the beginning, and I continue to hear this, that, for example, we're held as an industry that farming is considered more technologically advanced than construction.
Wow.
And so I felt there was an opportunity to try to help improve this. So that's kind of what got me in here and what keeps me going.
Gotcha. So that leads me to the next question. Tell us about Newforma and what problem or problems do you guys solve for us?
So what we see when we look at the construction industry and even the design side, which we work with also architects and engineers, is that construction companies are constantly looking for ways to add value to their clients and eliminate waste in the work that they do. And those are two passions that we also have at Newforma. If you look at the founding team, the executive team, and every single worker or employee at Newforma, we're always trying to help our customers add value and eliminate waste. And the way we look at this is that contractors add value by working with their clients and working with their subcontractors. They don't add value by filling out daily reports or pushing submittals through a process or making sure their RFIs get added or answered. That's all things that contractors have to do. And so as a company, what we try to do, we really focus on eliminating the waste or eliminating the minutia that contractors have to deal with on a daily basis and try to make that as easy as possible to do and take as little time as possible to do in order to provide them the opportunity to spend more time working with their clients and adding value, spending more time working with their subcontractors and building.
Well, let me jump in there and interrupt you, because when there are probably people who heard you say reduce or eliminate time spent on shop drawings, submittals, RFIs, daily reports, and they're thinking, what are you going to do, replace me with a drone? What else do I have to do? So how would you answer that question of how, if I'm a project engineer or a project manager who's currently spending 75% of their time doing those things, what sort of value, what do you see people replacing those activities with on the job site?
Yeah, so what I see, so specifically a project manager or project engineer is spending more of their time looking at the subcontractor side of the equation. What they're going to spend more time doing is what I hear constantly, and I personally feel they're going to do what they actually came in this industry to do, which is work with their subcontractors, solve problems, because I don't care how well planned a project is. You can plan until the cows come home. construction is a sector that deals with unexpected day in and day out, how well you plan. Can't not plan, but you shouldn't plan to the nth degree. And as a result, what we want to do is help people have to deal with the expected well, so they have more time to deal with the unexpected. So you're not going to replace people. It's just you're going to spend far less time managing information and far more time managing projects.
I like the sound of that. Yeah. Plan for the expected better so you have more time for the unexpected. Yeah. I remember when... It's going to happen.
I apologize. You mentioned you worked in the industry. You know, you go out every day, there's something that's gone askew, something that's not quite going the way that you planned. And if you had an extra 5 hours a day to spend fixing those problems rather than working 5 hours extra into the evening, I think that's a good problem to have solved.
Yeah, I remember after 6 or 8 months right out of school, I'd spent the first 6 or 8 months of my career on a job site as a project engineer, shooting line and grade, working with masonry crews and concrete crews and carpenters. And I got the dreaded call to go to the main office and work in estimating. No offense to the estimators out there, but so I spent 6 months in estimating. And at one point, some of the folks in the office were asking what it was like to be in the field. And my working hours came up, and I said, well, I normally work from 7 a.m., start at 7, and then usually wrap up at 6 p.m. And one of the guys said, what could you possibly be doing for 11 hours a day? And I said, there's always something to do. Either solving problems, or if you don't have problems, then you're looking out into the future to avoid problems. So that's a big deal, taking away the minutia so you can spend more time being proactive. I like the sound of that. So you've worked with lots of contractors. Newforma as a company, I see, has been involved with 1.5 million projects roughly. So you've been around a while. What has surprised you as an individual about the construction industry here in recent years?
So one of the things I tell people outside our industry, friends of mine, family who doesn't know anything about construction, and I answer that question. I tell them what truly amazes me, and I don't use the term amazed that often, but what truly amazes me and impresses me is that folks that execute projects in our industry ever actually get anything done with the hurdles that are put in front of them. It's unbelievable. I look at the contracts that are written between contractors and owners, between contractors and subcontractors, between architects and owners, and the goofy relationships that get set up in a lot of projects. And I believe in my heart that somebody spent years studying how to put together the worst contractual relationships to drive efficiency.
Yeah, I think they're called AIA.
Yeah, I'm not going to point the fingers at anybody specifically. I'm not going to take a shot at lawyers, but it's a contractual relationship that absolutely tries to drive down risk and make sure that you can point the finger at somebody when something goes wrong. And that is absolutely counterintuitive to collaboration. Kelly knows, who helped on our end arrange this interview, is that one of my pet peeves is I hate, or let me change the tense, hated the word collaboration. For 15 to 18 years, it was beaten into my head by contractors that they don't collaborate, they coordinate. They don't talk with the subcontractors about what needs to be done. They tell the subcontractor what needs to be done. And I just think that's can't be a great way to work, because I can't imagine any one contractor knows as much as the cumulative knowledge of all their subcontractors. It's not possible. It's not physically possible. So, and what's exciting me is I'm seeing that shift. But I think that's a question for later on. So it's just that, again, anything ever gets done. Because I've been inside the sausage factory. I've seen how sausage is made in the AEC industry, in our industry. Yeah. And it is truly a testament to the capabilities, the skill, and the dedication of people that work in this industry that these projects get put up on time and on budget.
Yeah, that's a good point. Those of us who know nothing but the construction industry, it's sort of like we live on an isolated island. and that's all we know. And then someone from the outside comes in and says, what in the world is going on here? And I've been that outsider in other places, but that's a good point, because the contracts are definitely not written to make things easier. So that really is a testament to the folks in the industry to be able to overcome ridiculous obstacles. So Dan, you've been in business and leadership for some time now. Tell me some of the things that you've learned about business and leadership here in the last year.
So two things that I think business leaders need to focus on, and I think they're the only two things you actually have the possibility of impacting, and that's the culture of your company, how you want to be perceived from the outside and inside, and your hiring decisions, who you're going to hire. And I think it's critical to make sure you're hiring the right people to fill your company. I tell people I'd rather spend 5 times as long to hire the right person than 1/5 the time to hire the wrong person. Your employees are who you are going to represent yourself to the external world. Employees that are coming into the job force today, the 20-somethings, 30-somethings, are working for companies or will work for companies who are going to provide them atmospheres in which they can become self-motivated. And I use the term self-motivation because I have a personal management philosophy that says it is not possible for me to motivate you other than through fear. And I don't believe in using fear as a motivation technique because it can only work over very short periods of time. So if you're not going to drive your motivation through fear, that means you need to provide a culture that affords the opportunity for individuals in your business to motivate themselves. Nobody can motivate somebody better than they can motivate themselves. And if you focus on adding value, as we talked about in one of the prior questions, if you focus on making sure you're adding value and eliminating waste, the beauty is, you notice I didn't talk about profits, but profits will happen.
Dan, you touched on the subject of 20-somethings. If you had the opportunity to share some advice with a group of 20-somethings who are just joining the workforce, what would you tell them?
I think the biggest piece of advice that I would give them is don't change their attitudes, but instead use their attitudes to continue to drive change in our industry. They're coming out of either trade schools, if they're going to join the trades, or they're coming out of college, if they're going to go into project management, and they've grown up in a complete different era, a complete different way of thinking than you and I did. And that thinking needs to permeate our industry, and they will be the agents that drive that change. So the thing I would ask them to do is not let the resistance to change grind them down and change them to be like us. I want them to change us to be like them.
That's good. Similar question. We didn't focus too much on here's the question. Anybody that works with contractors, I try to ask them, what are some common mistakes that you see? Because I believe that we can learn from common mistakes, and obviously there are lots of mistakes out there. So I'll ask you the same question, Dan. What are some of the common mistakes that you see leaders or business owners in the construction industry making?
So I think the biggest mistake, and the good news is I'm seeing all these mistakes lessen over time. So people are already starting to change, which is great. I applaud you. I ask you to continue to do it. But the mistakes that I see specifically around what we focus on is not encouraging and or supporting people inside their companies, their employees, who want to look at how to innovate their businesses around technology. There's a lot of really neat technologies out there that are going to revolutionize the way we deliver projects in this industry. And you need to support your employees to find those innovations. Don't look at them as something's wrong with them, but look at them as someone that could help drive your business into the 21st century. I think another mistake that we see. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to add that sometimes folks who've been in the industry for a while, they see a suggestion or an opportunity to change. If it's brought up, it's taken as an allegation against what they've always been doing, and that's not a healthy attitude. So I would agree, if someone is coming along and suggesting a change, don't take it as a negative, look at it as an opportunity.
I think that's extremely astute, actually. That's a great observation. It's the comment that I hear often that really, really drives me insane is, I've been profitable for fill in the blank number of years before you guys came along. Why do I need you? And you could be more profitable if you innovate with technology. If you don't care about being more profitable, you're going to help retain employees, because we just talked about the millennials. And folks that are coming into the business world or into the construction industry are expecting access to technology. If you don't have it, guess who is going to have it? Your competitor. And that's not good for your business. And I think that's also the second point I had, which is being proactive around technology rather than reactive. So, and you mentioned that about being reactive and then taking this as an accusation. I believe in my heart of hearts that what people do in our industry is truly amazing, and it's also something I know I could never do. I am jealous of the people that we sell software to, because they get to do every day something that I know I can't do, which I need to live vicariously through them. So what they do is awesome. We just want to make it more awesome.
Very good. Yeah, that's an interesting perspective. It's good for us to hear that, because it's so easy to get bogged down in the day-to-day that you don't look up and realize, wow, look at this project that I just spent the last 6 months, 12 months, 18 months, 36 months working on. It's pretty amazing. So thank you for saying that. All right, so Dan, you've spent several years in customer-facing roles. I looked through your LinkedIn profile. I saw titles like product evangelist, which that's a great title, by the way, director and a VP of customer satisfaction, account exec, and now you're a VP of business development. We in the construction industry are not necessarily known for our business development acumen. And that's probably a nice way of putting that. So if you were speaking to a room full of business development folks in the construction industry and you had a few minutes to talk to them and give them some juicy nugget of advice, could change their life forever, no pressure, but what would you tell them to help them be more successful in their job?
So two things immediately come to mind. What has been driven into me by my parents, by my employer. Number one component is just be honest and don't overcommit. Folks don't mind usually. In fact, what I'd say is people that you want to do business with won't mind if you're honest with them about how long something's going to take. What drives them insane is when you overcommit and underdeliver. So be honest, don't overcommit. And one of the greatest rules that I learned growing up is everybody knows the golden rule of do unto others as you want done unto you. But I was taking a business leadership class, and the leader from this in this class came from GE, and he said that rule is incorrect. In fact, it's backwards. What you want to do is learn about how other people want to be treated. Take the time to learn how they want to be treated, and then treat them that way. Because not everybody's like you, not everybody's like me. So I would also say from a business development perspective, people do business with people they like. Now, I know somebody out there is probably rolling their eyes and saying, yeah, but we have to do low bid work, so relationships don't matter. I can tell you most of the customers I work with don't do a majority of fixed bid work. So relationships are critical. And I think that's where you should be, where relationships are important, because then your honesty and your willingness not to overcommit yourself are going to pay dividends in the future. So that'd
Absolutely.
be my couple minutes of advice.
And I would second the point about relationships and people working with those that they like and trust. I spent about 3.5 years running a municipal contracting firm that was I won't say all, but it was 97% low bid work. And this was government work. But what I found was that the people that liked and trusted me found ways to do business with me. They wrote specs around me, and they did whatever they could within the sourcing guidelines to work with me because I took good care of them. So yeah, even though it may be a hard bid mentality, regardless of what the contracting method or the procurement guidelines say, people want to work with people they like. So I give a hearty amen to that one. So while you still have your business development hat on, tell me, what do you do right before you give a sales presentation? What are you reminding yourself of? What's going through your head? Just talk a little bit about that, if you would.
No, absolutely. So I think that the biggest thing to always keep in mind in order to do a successful sales presentation is that when the time comes to do the presentation, all you're there to do is execute because all your preparation has already been done. So what I do leading up to a presentation is that I make sure that I've reviewed my notes. I understand what are the critical issues that we're trying to solve for our particular customer. What value can we bring to the table? What is it that the customer, or in this instance, a prospect, is looking for? And absolutely, number one thing is I absolutely make sure I respect people's time. If they've told me they have an hour, I will make sure, I'll move heaven and earth to make sure my presentation's done within 1 hour, unless there's explicit permission provided by the prospect to go past that time. So I've had presentations where the questions that I received were far beyond what I expected. So therefore, in order to get through the content I need to get through, I need more time. And I will stop the presentation and say, this is very interactive. I appreciate your time, but we are held to an hour. So either I'm going to ask you to hold your questions so I can finish my content, or I'm going to ask your explicit permission to go past the time we have. I feel it's critical to absolutely make sure you always respect people's time who are coming to your presentations.
That's good advice. Very, very tactical and applicable. Let's shift gears a little bit as we wrap this up. Tell me, what are some of the mistakes that you've learned from as an individual while growing the Newforma business and over the past few years in growing a software business?
So I think the biggest challenge always, and I'm going to answer this from a software context, but I think this is irrelevant of what vertical you're in, is that you have to strike a balance between what your customers want and what they think they need. And I'm using that think they need on purpose, and what you need to do to drive innovation in your particular vertical. So as a software company, unlike a construction company, when you're building a project, typically you have one client you're building that project for. For a software company, we have over 1,000 clients that we're building our releases for. And so we have 1,000 different opinions, or I'd argue maybe 5,000 different opinions about what we should be doing and what we should be putting into our product and what other areas we should be investing in. And it's all great suggestions, but we need to always remind ourselves it's our business. We're here to run our business. We take those in as suggestions, and we need to balance that with what we need to do in order to innovate and drive our industry forward. Because most customers, not all, but most customers think in evolutionary steps. They think about how to make their life just a little bit better. But what we're looking for is how can we make your life a whole heck of a lot better? You know, I remember talking with my great-grandmother what it was like before cars were around. My kids cannot imagine a life before cars. My great-grandmother could imagine life before cars. Nobody, if I think Ford made the comment that, you know, if I listened to my customers, I would have made a faster horsewhip and not invent the car. So it's striking that balance between what customers need evolutionarily versus what you need to deliver revolutionarily. The second piece of advice I give is focus is absolutely critical. I don't care how big a company you are, how big of a company you run. I have friends that work for companies that have billions of dollars in revenue, billions with a B. And the number one thing we all complain about is we don't have enough resources to do what we want to do. So I worked at Newforma when we had $0 in revenue. We did not have enough people. Now we're much bigger than zero. We still don't have enough people. Friends that have billions of dollars in revenue, they don't have enough people. Nobody has enough people. Focus. Know what you want to do. It's better to be good at a few things than to be mediocre at a bunch of things. And then I mentioned this earlier in one of my other answers, but I think it's also critical to make sure you're always staying on top of your company culture. As you bring new people in, they come from other cultures, and it's important to assimilate them into your culture, not to allow your culture to be assimilated by them. So that's the advice that I would give.
Very good. Very good. Thank you for that. On the topic of focus, sometime in the last 6 months, I read a book called Essentialism by Greg McKeown. Are you familiar with that?
I am not, but I will be, I can guarantee you, within the next week.
It's a very interesting book. It's all about, he has an interesting graphic that shows a circle with 47 2mm arrows going out of it to represent how companies can often operate, where they're putting out energy in 47 different directions but making no progress. And the key is, to your point, focus. Put all of your energy in one direction, put all your resources in the most important thing to see real progress. But it's a revolutionary book, very eye-opening, so I would strongly recommend it.
Yeah, the analogy that I use, that I've seen again across the different businesses I've been in, is a lot of businesses, the analogy I use is roulette. So if people have never seen roulette, you can look it up, Google it. And what a lot of companies do in order to avoid risk is they take a dollar or chip, whatever the chip value is, and they put one chip in every single number on the roulette wheel. Then they spin the wheel, and they wonder why they end up with less money than when they started. So that's the lack of focus. You can't make these little bets all over the place, because otherwise you never make a gain. The house is against you, or the odds are against you in that type of a situation.
Yeah, and I can't remember which company. I heard an interview about this, and they used a very similar analogy that you gotta put all your chips on the one thing. You can't hedge your bets in business. To some degree you have to burn the ships. To use another analogy, you have to take away the other options and put all your resources and put all your eggs in one basket. This is an overload on analogies, but it's a very good point. You can't distribute your resources and expect to get anywhere. You need to pick the one thing, and I would contend that one thing is never going to be clear. There will always be some unknowns, and you just have to pick that as the leader and go. And what I found is when you make that commitment, then you'll find a way to make it happen.
And another thing, to echo what you just said, that I often tell people, especially new people joining our company, is especially in software, and I think in construction, when you're running into a situation, you're trying to decide, what should we do? Should we go after another vertical? Should we go, as a construction company, should we go chase healthcare? Because everybody's talking about the aging population, and there's a lot of money to be made in healthcare. Should we go into government? Should we? The one absolute fact is there is no right answer. So if you're going to sit down and go into planning sessions and come up with the perfect right answer, you're wasting time. Because once you make a decision, you don't know what the other path would have ended up leading to. So spending time trying to be right is a waste of time. Make a decision, measure, and if you find out that it's not doing what you wanted to do, because you always got to define success. If we go into healthcare, we expect to deliver 20% growth in revenue. Then go into healthcare, and if you don't get 20%, get out. Because for you, that wasn't the right answer. So don't waste time trying to be right, because it's not going to happen. There is no right answer.
That is great advice. And we're just about out of time, so I think that's a perfect place to land this thing. So last question, Dan, where can people find more about Newforma, about the products and services you provide, and then where can they connect with you, either on social media or elsewhere?
Yeah, so as far as where to connect with Newforma, you can follow us on Twitter at Newforma. We're on Facebook, we're in LinkedIn, and you can go to www.newforma.com. And I'd also say for our construction folks on this podcast, you can also check out www.smartuse.com. That's another one of our products specifically gathered or pointed towards the construction industry. For me personally, if you like my ramblings today, you can follow me on Twitter at DConery, just one N. That's the only suggestion. Most people like to put two N's in my last name, so I'm not Sean Connery. So it's DConery is my Twitter handle, or you can follow me on LinkedIn also. So I appreciate your time today. Thank you.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for being on the podcast. This has been some extremely helpful information and very worthwhile. Thanks a lot, Dan.
All right, you're welcome.
I hope you enjoyed that interview with Dan Conery from Newforma. As I mentioned at the beginning of the podcast, Newforma has created an offer for the Construction Leading Edge audience, and they've got a great free white paper that you can download titled Using Technology to Unite the Extended Project Team. So if you have a project team that is scattered geographically, I don't know that it would help a project team that is scattered mentally, but you can go to newforma.com/construction leading edge and download it. Again, it's a free white paper that I think will be very helpful for you. If you'd like to check out the links, you can just go to constructionleadingedge.com/028 for the notes for this call. If you appreciated this information that Dan shared, I would encourage you to get in touch with Dan via Twitter. Go to Newforma, send him an email, let him know that you appreciated it. If you'd like to get in touch with me, send me an email, todd@constructionleadingedge.com. And as always, if you enjoy this podcast, show some love. Feel free to leave a rating or a review on the podcast player of your choice. That feedback means a lot to me. And if you like this kind of information and you'd like to get insider access and stay in touch with what we've got going on behind the curtain here at Construction Leading Edge, join the Construction Leading Edge Nation. You'll get on the email list, and I'll stay in touch with you and share resources that are above and beyond the podcast, and maybe even stuff that doesn't show up on the website. You can do that by going to constructionleadingedge.com/nation, or just go to the homepage and click on the green button that says Join the Construction Leading Edge Nation. That's a lot of Construction Leading Edge stuff, lots of buttons to push, but you guys are sharp, and I'm sure you can keep up with it. So that puts this one in the can. Until next time, I'm Todd DeWalt, and I'll see you next time. Thanks, guys.